Live. We're here on a given Monday. We're talking about community matters because community matters. That's why. Okay. And Randy Tanaka and June Matsumoto, they are organizing, they are making it happen at the World Conservation Congress. This is big, and it's going to be next year here in Hawaii at the Convention Center. Both of these guys have been associated with the Convention Center in one capacity or another for the last 250 years, so they know a lot about it.
It seems that long.
So tell us, you guys are really pros when it comes to organizing events, but how did you get to be a pro, Randy?
Just a lot of years doing it, and working with some real good people on a statewide basis, on a national basis, and this one's on a global basis. So a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time.
Yeah. Is it fun?
It's a lot of fun.
Why?
You meet a whole lot of different people, different cultures. I'll tell you a funny story. It was during APEC in Department of State. I'm walking down the hall, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a guy that looks like Henry Kissinger. So I'm looking at, yeah, that guy looks like Henry Kissinger. And I'm walking with my guy from State, and as they pass each other, Henry tells the guy, "Hey, Linwood, how you doing?" And my guy, Linwood, says, "Oh, pretty good. How you doing? Henry, you doing okay?" And they just kind of walk past each other, and I go, "Oh, that was world peace walking down the hall." So it's a whole interesting game, the people you meet.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what happens at the Convention Center and in the, what do I call it, the Global Meeting Department of Hawaii doesn't necessarily get out into the community. The papers don't usually cover it much, and people across the street don't necessarily know what's happening. And so it's great to have you guys on the show.
Good to be here, thank you.
So, June, I have to ask you the same question. So you are definitely an expert in making big meetings and extending, promoting them everywhere in the world. How did you get into that?
Well, let's see. Actually, my entree into this was actually through hotels. I was in hotel sales. And about 12 years ago, when there was a position open at the Convention Center for International Sales, Randy asked if I would be interested, and it was great because it was just another dimension to the work that I've been doing. And it's been fantastic because representing the Convention Center, you have an opportunity to be able to, like you said, gather people from all over the world. And I had the great opportunity to actually kind of create the bridge between the U.S. associations that chose to meet at the Convention Center and to bring people over from Asia that would be interested in interacting with them. In addition to doing global meetings like this that actually call in people from all over the world, 160 countries actually for this one.
For the World Conservation Congress.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about that. But it strikes me, something you said, Randy, or maybe something you said, June, APEC was somehow a major marker on the continuum. Were we having, Pan-Pacific or global conferences at the Convention Center in Hawaii before APEC? And how did APEC, do you think, how did APEC change all of that, if it did?
I think APEC moves us up in the standings in terms of we had done a lot of conferences that international participation was there. But this one APEC brought leaders to it. It brought people in government, policymakers, our president, leaders from around the world to the conference. So it moved us up in the rankings. The other thing it did was enabled us to look at ourselves and say, we can do these kinds of things. We can compete with the best of them across the world. Once again, the guy I worked with, his name is Linwood Dent. At the end of the conference, he said, and he had done conferences, presidential and ministerial conferences from Reagan Gorbachev was his first meeting. He said of all the ones that he's participated in, Hawaii did it better than anyone else. So that gave us the self-confidence, the reaffirmation that we can play with the best of them. And at that point, we had always discussed about the location being an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage being in the middle of the Pacific. But now we had standing, we had proven to ourselves we could do this, and other people across the globe looked at us very differently, not as a distant location, but a central location. So that,
I had to tell you before we started that this past week, there was the International Organization of Human Brain Mapping. And this was, they got 1,500 members, but they had 3,000 people show up. And they do very sophisticated research. They were lucky enough to have a branch here, which was connected them, you know, I guess in an organization like that, you need that. And I got great footage down there. It was really interesting. They came from everywhere. Every medical community in the world is interested in this subject. So we really went global on brain mapping last week.
okay.
This is good. This is good for us.
Excellent for us.
We have Lions coming in this coming week.
Lions is
Yep.
big,
Yeah.
big, yeah.
And then we'll have actually the Pacific Camp at the end of the year, which brings together, I think, about 13,000 chemists from all over the Pacific Rim area.
Wow. Okay, so we're cooking. You know, the thing is that I think we, as you said, Randy, we've gone a far distance and further all the time in organizing international events here. And we, you know, I remember years ago, with some GSA meeting here, and remember this?
Yeah.
And they canceled because Hawaii was too much fun. And they didn't want people coming out here for fun. It wasn't a serious
Correct.
conference venue, but I think it has become, since then, a recognized serious conference venue.
Yeah, you know, and when you look at the collection of talent we have in the state, not only, you know, in the hospitality arena, but in the academic arena, you know, we have some people in this state that have just done phenomenal work. There's a guy named Ken Kaneshiro up at the University of Hawaii that was involved in the eradication of the medfly in Okinawa. So, you know, when you look on the magnitude of what is collected intellectually here, the people that are inspired and passionate about their work, it is amazing what we have in
Yeah,
our state.
that's another resource entirely. You know, those people. I found that a number of people at the brain mapping conference were from the local medical community, and so we have people in all these communities really to connect them up and bring them in and make them part of it, because that is impressive to the people who come from Bolivia.
Right.
They're always impressed to see local people involved in these things.
Yeah, and it's amazing. We got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I really do.
So let's turn for a moment to identify the World Conservation Congress. It sounds very ambitious. How ambitious is it?
June, how ambitious is it?
I would say
Very.
very. I think given at different points during the whole process, which was actually about 8 years in the making, there were times when we really didn't think that it was actually going to go through. So, you know, kudos to everyone that worked to make sure that we actually got it here. It was an 8-year haul, and now we have a little over a year to make it all happen and become a reality.
No sleep for you. A year is no time at all in organizing a conference, yeah. How do you get something like the WCC to agree to come here? You send them flowers?
Among other things.
Yeah, you do it all.
No,
You
no.
do everything, and you listen a lot. You try to continue to understand what's important to them. And at the end of the day, the gentleman by the name of Enrique Laman, who's a Costa Rican, he's been with the organizing IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, who holds this meeting every 4 years. He said the reason Hawaii won the bid is because it was more than just a conference for Hawaii. It had to do with the embracement of the environment, the embracement of what we are doing to make it a great place for people to live, for us to live with, and within the nature's confines, and just the passion for the environment.
We're symbolic.
We are it.
I guess what I hear is we're symbolic to the world. We have a reputation about this.
Yes. I mean, there's a gentleman on the island of Kauai, Chipper Wickman, with the National Tropical Botanical Garden. The work that they do globally about conservation and biodiversity, if anyone ever gets a chance to go to the gardens and see some of the work they're doing, is just phenomenal. And he was one of the guys that really took the charge to go after this conference. It's such a important time. It's addressing a number of issues on a global level. But at the end of the day, if we can learn to conserve, it's going to be a critical part in our preservation of the environment and our reservation for the future generations.
Yeah.
So it's critical.
So this is actually something, I don't know, I'm guessing, but that the world is going to be watching. It doesn't happen in a vacuum at the corner of Kalakaua and Kapiolani. That the world watches, and when you finish this, there will be takeaway pieces for not only the people who came, but for the media and for the world who is watching. And conceivably, this kind of conference has an effect on world thinking about the environment. Yeah?
The beauty of it being in Hawaii is we're like this microcosm of everything that's happening around the world. You know, invasive species issues, water conservation, land management, preserved areas. It's just collected all in the same place. And we've been able to do things that, when you scale it up or down, can have significant application to everyone else around the world. They're experiencing the same problems, but we've been able to manage it because we can manage it in the confines of the shoreline. So it's a pretty, you know, the organization has 1,200 member organizations, 200 plus government agencies.
This is the WCC.
IUCN.
Oh,
The-
okay,
yeah.
IUCN.
WCC is
International
the.
Union for the Conservation of Nature. That's ambitious.
A mouthful, right? But you've got 900 plus non-government organizations. You've got 11,000 volunteer scientists looking at all the issues. And like June said, spread across 160 countries.
The WCC is big, it's world famous. I may not know about it, but can you talk a little about what it is in the world, how long it's been around, what it does?
In 1948 is its beginnings. It's headquartered in Glan, Switzerland. It is the largest, the conference is the largest conservation congress in the world. It's held every 4 years. There are two parts of the Congress. One is called a forum, and the other is called the Members' Assembly. And the forum is open to the public for that active discussion about the environment and conservation, its relationship to each other. The second part of it is the Members' Assembly, where they talk about what the union wants to do going forward for the next 4 years. It's their governance discussions. So it's their strategic planning, so to
This
speak.
is really important.
It sets the tone for what they see are priorities in the 4 years coming.
So this is like 4 or 5 days, more or less?
It's a 10-day run.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a long conference, 1st to the 10th of September in 16. So it's not only good for the state in terms of tourism, because it's cradled in a typically slower period of time, but it's significant socially and economically for the state. It talks about indigenous knowledge. So it's all cradled in a good time with significant discussions on, you know, in 12 it was in Jeju, Korea, 8 in Barcelona, in 2004, Bangkok. So it's
This
really
will
cool.
be bigger than it was in the past. You expect 8,500 people to show up to this?
And you know, Jay, this is the first time it's going to be held in the U.S. First time. There's only one first time, but it's significant in terms of showing the rest of the world that the United States is concerned about the environment and conservation. At the same time, in 2016 is the centennial of the national parks. And you should know that Volcanoes National Park and Haleakala come to be in 1916. So there's some convergence of a whole bunch of things. And the parks are essentially a great demonstration of conservation.
Sure.
We've preserved these lands for the enjoyment of our
The
citizens.
first and major part of American conservation was right there. Let's take a short break. That's Randy Tanaka and June Matsumoto, World Conservation Congress happening here in what month in 2016?
September.
September, okay, whoa, just almost, well, a little
Just-
more than a year.
Just
yeah.
a little over a year.
Okay, no pressure. We'll be right back after the short break. We don't have a minute to waste, Jim.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the Think Tech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to Think Tech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at Think Tech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
We haven't gone anywhere, we're back here. Schmoozing, you know, and I'm sorry you missed the good part during the schmooze. But you know, we're gonna address now the question of how you make a World Conservation Congress in Hawaii in September 2016. What do you have to do? And that's not easy because this is a very big deal. So where do you start? Where do you put the left foot out, then what happens?
Oh, boy. June, how do
How
you
do
make
we
this
start?
work?
Well, let's see, how did we start? We actually went and checked on whether we actually had dates that were available where we could invite 8,000 people to come. We checked with the hotels to make sure that this was, the rooms were available and at a time when the hotels would appreciate having 8,000 people come to visit, our conservationist friends. And so that we could put together an attractive package as possible. Then we had to tell IUCN that we were interested. And one of the ways that we did that was we actually took a delegation of about 40 people from Hawaii to the previous one to ours, which was held in Jeju, Korea. So with the help of the state, and the delegation was actually led by then Lieutenant Governor Brian Schatz. We also had representatives.
This is after APEC.
This is after
After
APEC,
APEC,
yeah.
right.
This is after
We're
APEC.
still, you know, ecstatic about APEC.
Exactly.
We're living large.
Yeah, this is actually a year after APEC, when people still remembered what we were able to pull off, and we still had the glow of the previous meeting. OHA and Kamehameha Schools also made sure that we had a cultural component to the delegation, so we took a halau over to actually showcase Hawaiian culture.
You want to build buy-in on a thing like this.
Absolutely.
Both inside and outside. you know.
Right. And then
Hi,
we
Jay.
invited as
My
many
name's-
of the
my name's
decision
Keith
makers and
Betty.
the counselors as possible to join us for a night of Hawaii. Since they couldn't come to Hawaii, we took Hawaii to them. And it was incredibly successful.
Hula.
Yeah, hula
Of course.
and aloha and, yeah. And we really did bring the islands to their island of Jeju.
So what were you trying to show them? That you cared about conservation?
Absolutely.
That you had interesting arts and culture that you could bring to any event, that you had people who were articulate and passionate about the subject, and that you really cared enough to be, reliable partner
Right.
in setting it up here.
I think we showed that we were engaged at all levels, from state government, and we actually invited our federal agency partners to come to the party as well, so we were able to show a cohesive front. In addition to having, our presentations on culture and that type of thing, we also had many of the conservation community locally here participate in the various sessions and workshops that were presented at in Korea. So we showed our expertise in that area as well. So, we were able to make a very strong statement.
And then you talked to the leadership there. I guess
Mhm.
there must be a board that selects the venues.
Right.
You went and you found them and talked to them, and you explained your
That we
reasons.
were interested.
You're interested, and
Well-
then they ultimately had a vote. But I'm really curious, who were you competing against?
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Stepping back a little bit.
yeah.
So we're there engaging, right? Prospecting, building capacity for. And, June organized all of that. And, just getting the Hawaii guys all together and getting one team together. So we're out there working hard at it. They put out what is called an RFP. And the difference is that countries have to bid for it, not just a state. So we didn't exactly have the green light from the U.S. government to do this. But we figured with enough drive and passion for it, and it all made sense, our friends would align. So we went down the road. So we get down to 8 countries.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean,
You can
countries.
smell the competition in the air.
Right, and it's like, it's like the Olympics. I mean, we're now in a level of competition. Barcelona, Spain was the previous year to Korea, and when Korea got it, they were really hit a head-to-head with Mexico. We went head-to-head with Turkey,
Turkey.
Panama,
Panama.
who was it?
Was
Brazil,
in the news for a while. Ireland.
Ireland.
Really? Wow.
8 of them lined up for
okay.
the interest. So we respond as a state, and not exactly, in the sweet spot as opposed to the United States, but we keep on going down the road. And there was a young lady, Esther Kiaina, who was then the deputy at DLNR with William Isla, and former Governor Abercrombie. They said this is a good thing to do, and we continued on that path. Our friendships within Department of State developed from APEC, helped us navigate the governmental aspect of it, and at the end of the day, Undersecretary Pat Kennedy said this is a good thing to do.
She's related to the Kennedy family, I remember that. Yeah, right.
And said, okay, we would like Hawaii to entertain the bid, and it has the support of the United States government.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, and it came down to the 11th hour.
But you actually needed that to get
Oh, yeah,
going on this.
you do not go past without this. And Esther got on a plane and went to the preliminary bid process in Glan, Switzerland, and came back and said, this is what we got to do. They know we want it, and let's go forward. So it does take a village to make this thing work.
And a lot of work.
A lot of work, a lot of communication, a lot of, we've got a great board. Tim Johns is our chair, and he was he was the co-chair with Peter Ho on APEC. Chipper Wickman with the Botanical Gardens. We've got David Lasner, Charles Morrison, Kamanao Crab from OHA. We have recently joined us John DeFries to represent the neighbor island interests. Ohai Ryan to help us with the
She was here
hospitality.
last week, at that very chair. She sat in that chair, actually, Randy.
But we've got a great team. That's kind of what it takes. William Myla, who's now with Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Mike McCartney was with us in the beginning also, and now he's Chief of Staff for the Governor. The HTA, Brian Links on the MCI side, and soon to be George Saghetti from, who's the now new CEO. So we've got a good team. In addition, you've got to fold on all the federal agencies that are involved in it, and it's guys like USAID, Agency for International Development, the Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, National Parks, EPA, NOAA.
Federal presence on that.
Federal presence.
Yeah.
They're the members of the organization. So it takes a lot of people to get there.
Yeah. So is this part of a state agency? I mean, what's the organizational structure? You say there's a board, but what board of what?
We've structured it very much like the APEC experience. It's a nonprofit. We are housed at the East-West Center. The East-West Center is our physical agent. They're the 501c3. And I report to a board. And the way we look at it is obligation and opportunity. We have an MOU with the IUCN and the state of Hawaii. And so that's all the nuts and bolts that we have to fulfill contractually. And then we look at the opportunity. If we're to do only another meeting, then we will have surely given ourselves the short end of the deal. But if we look at the opportunity to raise the awareness of conservation and the environment within the state of Hawaii, within the United States, and on a global front, we will be part of the leadership group that takes us to the place we need to be regarding conservation and the environment. So it's a lot of work, but we got great people in the mix, and a lot of things happening. Some great opportunity going forward.
At this moment, I want to take another break. Okay, we'll come back and let's talk about how, you touched on this, but how it will affect the state in your maximum ambitious way. How is this going to unfold for us? What can we expect to see? Okay, that's Randy Tanaka and June Matsumoto. They're with the World Conservation Congress, which is scheduled for September 2016 at I want to say the convention center, but it sounds like it's going to be most of Waikiki. It'll be everywhere you look. And we'll be right back after this break to find out more.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I'm the host of Likeable Science on Think Tech Hawaii. We talk about why people should like science, why science is actually fun, how science is a dynamic and vital part of everyone's life, why everyone, every man, woman, and child on the planet should really know science, should love science, should be familiar with science. So it's a great show. People come on here and have interesting conversations with us. They tell us why they do what they do, why they love it, why we should love it too. I hope you'll join us every Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. And of course, you can see it anytime on YouTube. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidel and the Think Tech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
We're back with Randy Tanaka and June Matsumoto talking about the World Conservation Congress, which is part of the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Nothing small about that, no. Okay, so, it seems to me like when you talk about world conservation, you are talking about a lot of constituencies. It's not just nations. It's scientists, it's conservationists, it's industry, it's like everybody. And you have got to reach out and touch them all, I'm sure.
Well, they're all connected through IUCN. And this Congress is bringing together some of the brightest minds, the guys that have to make, the guy that still has to put up the fence to keep animals from crossing in and eating all the native species, So it's top to bottom. It's everyone's involved. But it's led by, like most things, by good research. This is what's happening in the environment. This is what's happening when invasive species and invasive, when the deer are running all over Maui and Lanai and Molokai, and what it's doing to the environment there and the watershed areas when you start losing all the native species.
It's everything.
It's everything all wrapped up together.
So what does the agenda look like? I mean, you must have given plenty of thought already to exactly what happens in terms of lectures and panel programs and breakout sessions and all that.
We just came back from what is called a regional conservation forum. It's a series of meetings that'll go across the globe, Asia and Europe, and it really begins to form the discussion, because what they're looking at is the next 4 years. So they're settling, we're finishing up, coming out of Korea, the 4 years and the things that they want to accomplish in that time frame. So it's being formed now. But, June's been quite involved in a couple areas. One is a thing called the Journeys, and the other Journeys, and she'll kind of explain that to you. And the other thing that has just come out last week, was it last week? The call for contributions.
Mhm.
Right, so, she's closely attached to that.
Yeah, please.
Well, the sessions and the program itself is actually being organized by IUCN. They have an obviously extensive network of folks that will be deciding on the various themes. The theme actually has been decided. It's the planet at a crossroads, kind of stating the urgency and the need to act now. It's no longer just talk, but now action is needed. But as Randy mentioned, the call for contributions is now, it has now gone out. And so the Congress website is actually IUCNWorldConservationCongress.org. And so by going there, if there are any conservationists that are looking to participate, there's definitely the opportunity to do so there. Locally and somewhat nationally, we're now putting together many different working groups to address areas anywhere from federal agency engagement to capacity building with the Conservation Campus of how to nurture the next generation and how we can get the local community involved in becoming involved in that, how we actually are able to showcase how the indigenous applications in the area of conservation. It runs the whole gamut of how to engage with the Congress. And so we would also encourage people to let us know if they're interested in participating in these working
That's the
groups.
call for contributions?
The call for contributions is
That's
after
not
the
money,
Congress.
you're talking about like a call for papers.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
right.
Okay.
And then the working groups are actually local groups of like-minded people that are interested in engaging in different ways at the Congress. And that's actually set up through the host committee, the program committee. So, by contacting either myself or Randy, definitely there's an opportunity for, not only on Oahu, but we also want to make sure that the people go out and see all the amazing initiatives that are going on the neighbor islands, and to see all the conservation work that's happening out there as well.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, Randy, when you talk about all these things that are happening in Hawaii and talking about, this group coming from everywhere in the world, you certainly want to take them to the frontier, take them to the neighbor islands everywhere, show them every project, every problem, everything, which means some of those 10 days have got to be dedicated to neighbor island trips, eh?
Yes, well, and what we have front and back, pre and post field trips. I'll give you an example that's being dry run tested by the National Tropical Botanical Gardens. One of the featured products of IUCN is this thing called the Red List. And what the Red List is a collection of endangered plant and animal species put in this list called the Red List. And so what Chipper Wickman and the Kauai Community College are doing, Chipper is bringing in a person who knows all about the red list. How do you collect information to get that on the red list? Because then it can be identified as endangered, and we treat it a lot
protected,
different.
yeah.
Exactly. So they're bringing in that. He's working with students at the community college. He's using the gardens as the test model. This is what you look at, doing the field work. And now when we talk about building capacity, we are not only building intellectual capacity, but the physical requirements of actually going out and doing field work. So that's an example of a workshop that's going to be done to get more people involved in the work that has to be done for conservation. And this will repeat itself all over the state. We're looking at projects out at AEL with some of the fish ponds. We're looking at, just before this conference in June is the Coral Reef Symposium. So there's a whole lot of things that will involve people and projects across the state. Our federal agency partners and the Department of Land and Natural Resources will be able to showcase some of the things they're doing with fencing and prohibiting, the deer from crossing and managing it. It's managing those protected areas. And you'd be amazed how much the state is doing. Like you said earlier, we don't always hear about the positive stuff, but there are a lot of people doing a lot of work out there to protect the environment.
But, you imply that there are many intersections here. And one of the intersections that is, inevitable is the intersection of the environment and energy. The other one is the environment and climate change. And I imagine that from a content point of view, you have no choice but to cover this. I mean, IUCN has got to be organizing all kinds of programs to bring all that together in a multidisciplinary way so that everybody gets to put his discipline on the table.
Correct, and that's the call for contributions. So when it's all collected and people vet these things, we're going to see what is of highest priority in the environment and to IUCN, and not only work that's being done here, but across the globe. How does, the water management is going to be a huge thing across the globe. You see it happening in California and in Colorado, and what are we doing to manage the watershed areas? All that will come to light. Energy use, exactly. If we reduce that dependency and find a clean energy alternative, which the state of Hawaii is actually leading in, we can demonstrate those things. I was talking to a person in DC about, the recent discussions they're having about offshore windmills. Well, Hawaii's been talking about that.
Paper, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what I find interesting is that we are doing some of these things, and you'll have some trips to neighbor islands where knowledgeable people will explain to the visiting firemen, what they can learn from Hawaii. But in terms of the call for contributions for papers and all that, there must be a lot of people in Hawaii who are worthy of participating in these panels, worthy of publishing in the proceedings, worthy of making global statements, and providing the benefit of Hawaii's knowledge. How are you gonna bring them in? Sometimes it's hard to bring them in. University is bristling with them.
Well, there's, we did it in Korea for the call for contributions, and there are a number of people from Hawaii on those panels and lecturing. So it's there's a lot of people that'll be there.
And IUCN does have a process to make sure that that everyone gets an opportunity, and also that not just one perspective is given. So there are different ways. There are different members that need to consist of that are needed to actually create a panel for discussion. And it's part of the actual selection criteria. So we encourage everyone, who is interested to go to the website, take a look and see,
Offer a contribution.
Yeah, what is involved in actually in putting together a call for contributions, and know that You know, there are many people here locally that are happy to help connect them with the right people in order to make that discussion or conversation brought onto the
Yeah,
stage.
you can get some real buzz locally.
Mhm.
So, but just suppose I'm an ordinary schmo,
Mhm.
and I wanna come down and see it.
Mhm.
I wanna rub shoulders with these guys, I wanna
Mhm.
hear some of the, you know, the current thinking. How can I get in? How much do I have to pay in American money
Well,
to get in?
let's see, I don't have the actual cost of the Congress top of mind, but I do know that they are offering 1-day, 2-day options. They're also offering a
Like a
special.
ski ticket.
They're also offering a Kama Aina rate for local folks that want
That's
to come
great.
down. Also, the exhibit and what they call the pavilion area, which will be the lobby level of the convention center, will actually be open to the public. So if you just want to come down and take a look around to see what's happening in the world of conservation and not necessarily sit in on the sessions, then you're welcome to visit that area, which will actually be open for the entire 10 days.
I'll be there,
Good.
telling you now.
You
But
also.
we only have a minute left, Randy, and I'd like you to close. And to the extent that you'd like to ask the public for anything, contributions, participation, money contributions, there's camera 2 right there. Can you talk to camera 2? The
Camera-
light's gonna go on, and that's the one you wanna make your pitch to. Ready? Go.
So the question is, how can you get involved? We need to raise some funds for this Congress, so we will have an online opportunity, hopefully in September, where you can, through crowdsourcing mechanisms, we want everybody to get involved, so that's one. You also should take the time to explore what IUCN and the conference is going to be about, because here in Hawaii we have a tremendous opportunity to showcase to the rest of the world what the original Hawaiians did in terms of the A'opua. We were in that practice from the very beginning, so be proud of who we are and what we've done in the past, and explore the opportunities to participate. And you should also know that at the same time the Congress is here, there's a likely chance that Hokulea will be in New York. So from coast to coast, across the nation, we will have the chance to demonstrate to the world what conservation means for the rest of the world.
Let's do it. I'm really excited about WC. Good for you guys, good for putting it together. And I hope you have a pleasant year between now and then, setting it all up.
Thank you, Jay.
I hope so too.
Thank you. Thank you, June. We'll talk to you again some more about this. Aloha.
Yeah.